both appearing in shadow, but both wearing trench coats and hats. And from what he could tell of the male partner, this guy looked like his dad. And Hippolyta explained that she did know what was going on with Jay. He was actually having new memories that were being formed as a result of an impending time travel experience. And Hippolyta went on to explain that Themyscira exists at all points in time, so depending on how one exits the island, one can travel to any point in time. And so using the invisible jet, which had been reintroduced in post-crisis continuity as an alien artifact that could actually take on multiple forms, Hippolyta, in her Wonder Woman gear, along with Jay Garrick, traveled back to the early 1940s, where they ended up rescuing a young Jay Garrick from imprisonment by the Wizard. And so it turns out that present-day Jay remembers seeing his future self plus Hippolyta rescuing him. Now, things would have been so uncomplicated if Jay and Hippolyta had just gotten back onto the invisible jet, gone back through Themyscira and come to the present time. But Jay got nostalgic, and he wanted to go to the Smithsonian. And Hippolyta, who found this time period quite interesting, said, okay, we'll go. Well, they chose a rather poor day to go, because in attendance at the Smithsonian were Hawkman and the Atom. And unfortunately, Hawkman did not take too kindly to older Jay and this woman wearing battle armor appearing at the Smithsonian. And so Jay and Hippolyta had to make a quick exit, but then they were encountered in the sky by Alan Scott, who was at this time, of course, Green Lantern. And this was a real treat for fans, because in the current continuity, in the present day, Alan was going by the name Sentinel, and he wasn't wearing his Green Lantern ring. So this was really nice for fans to see a 1940s adventure with Alan as Green Lantern. And Alan turned out being quite understanding. He took them back to JSA headquarters, where he explained to everybody that this was an older Jay Garrick, and the woman he was with was also from their future. Alan went on to explain that it would be dangerous for present-day Jay to stay in his past, because young Jay was there. And this was all really neat on Byrne's part, I must say, because Byrne clearly knew his Alan Scott history, and that Alan, with his ring, could detect things like time paradoxes, thanks to the mystical powers of his ring. So in the end, Hippolyta put Jay on the invisible jet, sent him back to the present day, but the jet came back to the 1940s, where it took on the form of an invisible 1940s aircraft. Turns out Hippolyta decided to stay in the past. And when she came back to the present day, she explained to the Garricks that she spent a total of 8 years in the past. I'm guessing around 1942 through 1950. So the upshot of this was Byrne was establishing, or rather re-establishing, the pre-crisis Wonder Woman stories in post-crisis reality. Now he was saying to fans, all of those classic All-Star comic stories from the 40s, they count again. Just it's not Diana as Wonder Woman, it's Hippolyta as Wonder Woman. And some fans quite like that. They said, well, that's pretty neat because in those Golden Age stories, you do see Wonder Woman there. But here's where it angered a lot of fans. A lot of fans said this really served to turn Diana into a legacy character. Yeah, sure, it was due to time travel that Hippolyta was the JSA's Wonder Woman. But at the same time, in the eyes of the citizens of the DCU, Hippolyta was the first Wonder Woman, and so Diana was the second. Now, you could make the argument that in those Golden Age stories, Wonder Woman was the secretary, and so maybe she wasn't recognized so much by the public as a member of the JSA. But a lot of fans sided against with what Byrne was doing, and they said, it wasn't really necessary in a post-crisis reality to have this 1940s JSA Wonder Woman. For my part, I like it because I enjoyed reading some of those classic All-Star comics in reprints. Here's where I think Byrne could have played things a little bit differently. Maybe instead of having Diana dead and transfigured into a goddess, maybe Byrne could have had Diana travel back in time. And so it could be explained that Diana was Wonder Woman in two time periods. And in fact, given the current movie with Gal Gadot, as well as what we've seen in Batman v Superman, in the cinematic universe, we have a Diana who's been Wonder Woman in two different time periods. It makes me think of the story Time and Time Again by Dan Jurgens, Roger Stern and company. There was a scene where Superman was thrown into the 1940s, and he did encounter the Spectre and President Roosevelt, but a lot of fans regretted the fact that the story wasn't expanded to explain that Superman actually spent a period of years in the 1940s serving in the JSA, thus bringing the pre-crisis Superman stories into post-crisis continuity. I really do feel that if Byrne had shown Diana going back in time and being Wonder Woman, that would have sat much better with the fandom. I'm getting the sense that Byrne's explanation that Hippolyta was the JSA's Wonder Woman did not sit well with people in editorial and executive positions within DC Comics. Alright, the next story arc which I'm going to talk about is probably going to take more than a few minutes. And just looking at my counter here, I think it's best that I bring part 2 of episode 104 to a close and say that I'll be back next week with part 3 of episode 104. I'll be talking about what Byrne did with Donna Troy and her origin. I'll be talking about how fans reacted to that story arc. And then I do want to spend some time talking about what happened after Byrne. What parts of his run stayed in continuity? What parts did not stay in continuity? And then I'll just have some general closing remarks. So until another 7 days have come and gone, let's consider this class to be in recess.